Arts. We got all kinds of cool stuff going on with this one. In Strange Theories, Chapter 4. Pretty much the 16th, 17th centuries, as the Enlightenment came along, the ideas of what Christianity could provide in terms of answers, scientifically, handled understanding the world they lived in. It went from being a little bit of an idea. It's not like people before were not intellectual. I mean, I'd challenge anybody to read through some Aquinas, and you know, we're talking 1200s, and just blows your mind over the centrality of, at that point, the Catholic Church is huge in Europe. The way they're thinking is dictated by the church. They didn't all have access to the scriptures. And then 1450, suddenly a printing press shows up with movable type. You could make Bibles and get them out to people. Now people can start reading, and they go, yeah, that's it. Rationalism takes a huge leap, which means it's built on human scientists of the years that came up with the things that we are most familiar with, the basic laws of physics. Those were Christians, and they understood this to be and got started and made a difference. The rationalists, however, didn't like that, and they wanted to do everything they could to get rid of it. So going all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, the serpent there meets with Eve and challenges her with one. So running with that, humanity to go in an opposite direction, to not listen to God, to not discover what he has to say, not go with his urge, and it becomes very, very strong. Anybody know, like Proverbs 3:5?
The Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. I know that's all of it.
There you go. So that leaning on your own understanding is, I think, however, and limit things to my five senses. Anything outside of that, no, can't have it. And really, not just the five senses and my box of understanding. So it's in a box. There's a way of understanding things that fit a box. And to go beyond that box is a problem. And easily acceptable. So, in every that way, maybe we can eat the fruit. Well, that went well. Around us, leaning on our own understanding, thinking we're science, and just looking back over your life, you can see places where what he said, not going where he would have me go. I'm just going to do my thing. Uniformity, I didn't write that, but uniformity is the idea that nothing has ever changed. So, on our way, the idea is that the way that we will be, that the rate of one direction, it's all falling apart, and the idea is that it's all, and you go, this, in order to fit everything that we see on the planet, we think it would fit, then that's how we run into millions and millions of years, not only that time, but then we have to add in different things here. So have you ever noticed So there's dinosaurs. And so you go, well, yeah, that's, they're gone since 65 million years ago, because that's what they said on. Then you go down to Texas, a little south of Fort Worth, you walk down the creek, and guess what? You got dinosaur footprints right next to human footprints, and the number's wrong, or something about this is askew. So the linear thing, well, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Footprints next to dinosaur footprints, which says they existed at the same time, which fits a Genesis story better than it does this one. And you go, okay, so something's amiss. That doesn't mean all of our ideas as Christians has got this nailed down. It just means, so now we're talking about missions in our eternity in this 19th century, 1859. So that was, there was something else. You just been monkeying around. It got, I like that he included the names. Materialistic now, that's the thing everybody's familiar with. And the whole idea is that what we can do to replace his ability to be sovereign, anything that we can do to throw that out there. So in other cultures, there's plenty going on there. Well, they don't really need this replacement. You go to Africa, they got lots of gods. In America, which is an extension of Western, what do we need? Is there an enemy out there who knows we're going to lean on our own understanding? Let's just deal with that. We'll just eliminate all of them. What kind of things were tied into history or science? Replacement, steady state, linear. Because that's just, did they say, oh yeah, the dinosaur tracks right next to human? Because we have to have a replacement, steady state, and linear. And it's built in.
Enough with what we believe, we just believe what.
And sadly, that one gets us in trouble. The first religion to appear on earth was monotheistic. They go, nope, that's not what happened. We had to start out with all these. We wound up with one supreme God and landed there. So leaning on their own understanding, they came up with these other gods, other thing, and that there's nothing beyond life. There's nothing, because our five senses don't. So we just eliminate all of it. It just doesn't exist. Had anything to do with all of that. He really found a way to take a whole bunch of people in another direction and far away from God. And if our minds have been set on these things, then it's been hard to break away and go, oh, Scripture's saying something else. This is teaching me something unique. This is telling me about something, and our mindset has been bent because of that as well. It's hard to get out. Let's see what else we got here. Well, what stood out to you? It'd be better if I don't talk much. Y'all go.
Oh, I thought it was interesting on 135 in my book where he talks about one member of the pantheon of gods began to gain stature above his fellow deities as a budding supreme god. Thus, monotheism gradually evolved out of. I mean, isn't that just so?
Yeah.
Do they argue the same thing? What you just said is, if that is what we have been taught, it's hard to get out of it. Is there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've even heard that that's not fact.
Yeah. Science is fact.
Yeah, science
Yeah.
is fact.
Trust science.
You read on the internet, that's true.
Always true. You can trust the internet.
Over here this morning, and I looked at him and I said, basically that's what it was. And then the babies, the children, the offspring, as he called
Yeah.
but we don't, we still believe some, it has affected Christians, this buoy, and it's.
True. And it hits hard, and it hits just a hint of doubt in different things. Well, this doesn't line up with the science, you go, yeah, it shouldn't. That was designed to do this. National Geographic, Smithsonian also. This is the idea. Do this, get them out of their ignorance. Just to look at the information, and the pictures are awesome. Just know that behind the scenes, this is it. Raise that doubt. So, then you have to lean on, I don't know, who would you? Well, we know we're in good hands. We do that. So, it's just out there. And when we say evolution, if we're just talking scientific, not the made up extra additional stuff, beings and over time, yeah, that's the food that was available, putting plants together and getting new plants, and you go, wow, that was brilliant. It must be evolution. No, it was the dude came up with this idea. I think I can make better beans. And you go, well, it's not. The conclusions that are drawn have gone a little wacky, which is it impacts how we see missions. How we see created all kinds of problems, as you have just read.
Just the idea, animistic idea that everything that's living has a soul.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think animals are wonderful, but even they have soul. I mean, a lot of Christians believe that. I mean, wouldn't that be to thinking,
Yeah, we got to keep
my
going.
favorite plant has a soul, and I want
Yeah.
to see it, and
Just your dog.
I mean, I understand it, because pets are, because many now treat dogs, mainly, even cats, as human.
Yeah. Getting them Christmas presents soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I never realized people, myself, suffering.
I've known
Wow.
somebody that's spent thousands of dollars on trying to keep
Keep that animal alive. Yes, I know.
thousands.
Yeah, it does. Just seeing.
Same-sex marriage, transgenders.
Yeah, because we
I mean,
toss
it's-
everything. Figured out. Yeah, not hardly.
They got figured out so much, why first time.
They struck.
Didn't the one guy that was a Tyler fan, then he realized, as he read those missionary letters,
Yeah, he really.
get the evidence, and kind of like Rose saying, and really like, oh, wait a minute, there's a mistake here.
And tons of them have done that.
Yes.
And there are tons of scientists who are going, nope, not buying this whole thing. Today they can do it in a lab, and it's not accomplishing using this. But it affected like this. The missionaries are being taught this stuff just in their heads, just as we have. I mean, you go, wow, wait a minute. The more amazing it is, and the more it opens up, and it just gets.
Those things don't really happen anymore. And then as we've studied, we have learned, oh, wait a minute, I was in error. All of us need to do, whether it's science or religion, but whatever it is, when God shows us something that's real, we've got to believe it, whether we fully understand it or not.
Yeah, and feelings. I just don't feel it. I just don't. I'm just going to have to go with my feelings on this one. Yeah, but whatever following my understanding, this is how it should go. And then I'm mad at God because he didn't do it the way I wanted, which is also, if he doesn't answer the prayer the way I want it, he may answer it, but it may be in a way that's different than the way I want it. So he is horrible. We'll move on to something else, or he's not there at all, just replacement. Okay, so 1882, we got some of this, 1900. So we get to the Scopes monkey trial. So we get to the 1920s. We've got explosive things happening in the church because of this kind of stuff. And it's the whole Wellhausen thing he gets into here too. There's division over are the scriptures trustworthy at all? And we've dug up 90s and 2000, or getting into 1900, that this stuff can't be trusted. Look at all the stuff we've dug up, and it only talks about these other gods, and it doesn't talk about, it doesn't it's related to that. And the model and built around it, which is what this all led. So, Christians today are trying to get away from that, but go in this other direction. And we're holding to the Bible is telling us the truth. The idea is the Bible's true, and all of this other is alternative perspective, even on if a science were shot down. So they don't get to be part of, and that debate started. So then we wind up with liberal Bible colleges and seminaries, and fundamental or conservative. And it has not stopped yet. It's still going on. But the whole idea of early on, the fundamentalist, which you may not want to be associated with today because it kind of comes up with more of a cultural, social kind of perspective. But at the time, those guys were fighters for God's truth, for what God was trying to do, and not giving in to the pressure of society around them. So being a fundie sounds like a horrible thing by the time we get to the 21st century, but those guys need awards for what they did back then, 1880s, 1890s, coming in 1900s. It was amazing. But it's this fight, and we're still in it. We're still facing these things. Let's see. So at the bottom of 137, this is an 1887 study of origins, and it says, I was struck with the increasing vehemence of the attacks made, not only on Christian theism, but on the very foundations of spiritual religion. If we are to believe the men who come forward as the recognized organs of the scientific world, we must conclude that all that has been affirmed by the disciples of the gospel is but an empty dream. Our aspirations after a higher world are, to use the figure of one of this school, but as dead leaves whirled aloft into the air, which fall back on the hand that flung them. Everything is to be reduced to energy, ever transmuted, but ever the same. Oh, wow. So materialism and all of that spiritual stuff is just nonsense. And it's just, everything's energy transformed into matter, goes back to energy, back and forth. But that was the big push, is materialism. So I guess we could put that up there. Materialism. What else? So everything has to be, it reduces down to materialism, the only what you can see, hear, feel, you're just doing that, five senses. And for the scientific people, it's, we got to reproduce or find this stuff. It's got to go through the lab. They define the test. They define the rules for the test. That becomes a problem because we're not going to allow in anything else. Remember the box. So, yeah, we're into being intelligent. It has to fit the box. And anything outside of that box doesn't get to be included. So, replacement, again.
So if I can't see it, it doesn't exist.
If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Exactly. Yep. And you go, man, the more they've gone into this since the late 1800s, you're going, man, they found a lot of stuff that we can't see in the light spectrum. And you just go, stuff we're finding in space, we didn't know it was there until we found out, created some test or some equipment that can spot it. Can't see it. That's not even spiritual. That's within the material realm. But yeah, it doesn't fit within the five senses. So these things have jumped a long, long way. What else grabbed you?
My book is on 122, it says 11 years later, in 1898, it happened. That fair people of Ted Andrews' name allowed himself to read the missionary report sent home to the church from the distant field. The missionary said that primitive inhabitants of that distant place already acknowledged the existence of a creator, God, even before the missionaries arrived. Some described Lang's reaction. Go down and read that.
Yeah, the more he dug into it, the more he found out it was for real. Yeah, that's true. They didn't really want to let him just tell that story. It didn't fit the box. Let's see who else has got some stuff here.
It refers to, there toward the end of our reading, about the school of higher criticism.
Yeah.
So they see themselves as loftier.
No. No. It's a yeah, they do, but it's
That's what I mean, though. But go ahead.
yeah, but it's the methodology that it's referring to. But they do come out with an attitude of superiority. So yeah, it follows. But ego seems to follow all of these guys. Yeah. But higher criticism is a legit approach to try to understand what the scriptures, what part, when you're looking at the text, and it goes back to original languages, and you're trying to figure out, okay, was this part of it, or did it get inserted by a scribe along the way? And sometimes it happens. So there's a note alongside in a column, and it didn't fit that line, but the next edition will have it in that line. Yeah, and it just, they had little notes that were there for clarification, and then it became included. So some of that happened, and they're trying to figure out, okay, so what was the original? Higher criticism is looking at what did we start with?
Well, then why would it have such an ill effect?
Because they were approaching it, these guys, they were approaching it from here, and they're going, okay, so you can't really trust this, but we're going to look at, why bother? I don't understand why they bothered. Why didn't they go do something else? But they decided we're going to use our intellect to go after the scriptures, which I think is motivated by the same one who provided this. And so they used that to tear this apart and to go after the scriptures and say, see, this isn't trustworthy, and all that backfires, because the more they brought that stuff out, and then the more archaeology is finding all these things that say David for sure was there, the Israelites were exactly here. That's the town that was destroyed and was burnt. Oh, it looks like Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh, look, we found, and he's just one after another, and you go, oh, oops. Then in 48, you find a whole bunch of jars filled with the scriptures in scrolls. Some of those things translated before 250 BC, and you go, well, it just blew all of our higher criticism things apart. So It's still a legit thing. It still needs to be done, but by honest people, not just bent people. So those guys are good. Like, Michael Heiser, we kind of like his stuff. He's one of those Old Testament guys who can get into it. And you go, yeah, we need guys who can do that. We just need them to believe God when they're doing that. So, but this tends to be the thing that grabs people, and then why they go to seminary and why they want to get into biblical studies, I don't know, except that the enemy is leading them that way. They like to tear it down because they love that replacement thing. But yeah, higher criticism, that's where that came from. That's Wellhausen. He mentions there, but he's behind a bunch of that stuff. Wellhausen's liberal theology. Wow, yeah, there it is.
And now on page 123 it says, still Langfest is fact relying especially on the startling discovery of A.W. Howard concerning the supreme being of the Southeast Australian tribes.
Yeah, he ran into a bunch of them that were believed in a supreme being way before they got there. I like his last line before it goes into the Nazis, which is next time. Remember, we're going to do that next time. But right before he gets there, he says, their attacks, all these guys, Wellhausen's group, their attacks might have been more effective had they publicly exposed the fact that Wellhausen's theology is based upon an anthropological theory which most anthropologists no longer endorse. So even though it changes, just like that first guy, they prove it wrong, and you go, nope, we're holding on to that no matter what. So, you go, wow, this is really, this is an attack on God. It's just anti-God thinking, anti-God theories and approaches. And I'm not sure just having an anti-God theory is exactly scientific. Science means that you actually enter into this with true knowledge and an openness to explore. And the beginning of knowledge, the beginning of understanding is knowing that there's a God, that he's out there. So they miss it. Because they just go, here's the box, materialism. If it's anything beyond that, nope. They go, then you can't know. You can't, that's not science. Science says you explore the possibilities. Yeah. What else you find in there?
I think it's kind of natural to oppose anyone who questions prevailing theory. I think the science and all of those do that.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want somebody to question what our prevailing theory is. Even if there's evidence,
That's true.
know the evidence for right.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to protect our theory, whatever it is. Yeah. That is true. Yeah, we do that as Christians too. Depending on, whatever it is in our tradition, if we're used to having the altar call at the end of a service and we don't have an altar call at the end of a service, somebody else from that tradition's in the church and they go, well, you guys aren't even Christians. Probably don't know Jesus. You're all going to hell. You don't have an altar call. Where's the evidence for that? Yeah. Prevailing theory. Yeah. Gonna stick with it no matter what. Yeah.
As Christians, we really do need to be able to listen to other thought and philosophies and theories to be aware and to consider.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to be able to do the same thing and not go into it with the mind can't think of anything outside of this box.
Mhm.
And we can't. I mean, we should, because if not, we could never relate to those who are living outside of that box all the time.
Yeah, and we really do. We need to be able to understand this and not throw rocks at them, just pray for them, try to talk to them. But we need to understand it without getting sucked in. Because getting sucked in seems to happen.
I read well, I didn't read it, I do a quote of the day at school, and I just click on the link and it pulls it up, and last week one was, a truly educated man is one who can hear varying, remember how it said it, thoughts, and not necessarily accept it. But you can still hear it.
Yeah.
And think through it and work through it.
Yeah.
And you forced us, even as Christians, it's still within Christian thought, but you pushed us to really consider some things that were in here that most of us had missed, and then to decide, am I gonna believe that or not? Or am I going to say, no, my pastor's crazy? But,
There is
what I'm
that.
saying, even within our box of Christianity,
Yeah.
we don't have it all figured out.
We're following a God who's infinite, has all knowledge, and has been around a while. And to assume that we know how this goes,
We know more than he does.
yeah, or we know better, yeah. You go, hardly. Yeah, in our little length of time here, the only thing we got is ego. And that's messed up. But he knows better. Yeah, better to listen to him. And then he will lead us in the right path, which will take us through science and use our five senses and get us to thinking this thing through. And it does not replace him. Oh, and on the steady state thing, this whole thing, it's just always been the same. Not hardly. Let's see. The angels are watching, and God decided, you know what? I'm going to give a week to doing this. And builds the earth. That's cool. Joshua's stuck in a battle. He says, I need a little more light. Stops the earth from turning. It ain't so steady. He's changing things. Things fit. He spreads them out. He moves them in. He can put things in places that we can't even understand. He can move people. He can walk on water. You just go, not that. For the most part, you work with what's kind of typical. And maybe typical state would be okay. But to say it's just universal uniformity, nope. And linear, nope. It's not either or, it's both and. He's got stuff going on all the time. There's spiritual and material. Things are happening. There are human beings and divine beings all in one place at one time. And you go, wow, this is kind of cool. And it's bigger than the box. Bigger than that box. Yeah. Even though we need a box once in a while just to operate in and go, I'm not ready for all that. I'll just take my little box. And God says, just take your little box. And we'll add to it. But it's okay. Yeah, don't sweat it.
Scientists have done some research, the ones that are overdo it, have done research about the steady state thing, about how there's even, about studies of light, how that it's possible that light goes, or maybe light, we say it travels at 186,000 miles per second. And they said, well, actually, in that, it all travels one way, or possibly all travels one way to the end of that second, but then it automatically, it goes back without traveling. And so anyway, I don't know how they're figuring that out, but anyway, I've read about that's possible, or it's possible it goes 186,000, half of that distance one way and half of the distance the other way. And it's just talking about, the speed that we think of when we say, oh, it's been there, 1,000 years or whatever. Well, that may or may not be, because
Yeah, we don't know anybody who was.
Right,
Yeah.
so we know what's written, but, the only one that knows for sure about all those things is God, what he had written down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he does some incredible things. And we are fortunate to be in the midst of it. But he's hitting on the scientists, which is good, because the eternity in their hearts as we go through this, it does make a difference in how society works. So when you get into the Nazis, and we'll finish that chapter, when you get into that whole thing and what they were thinking, it's built on that stuff, built on this. And it gets crazy. So let's pray. Lord, thanks for this day. Thanks for a chance to give thanks to you for all you've done, 40 years right here in this place. Thanks for the things you're about to do, and that you are opening doors that we had not even imagined. And we pray for this day as we spend time together and with you, that we would honor you